Commander Lisa Clean sat at her desk. The orbital command station, sipping her morning coffee. It was Monday, and Mondays were always slow. The station hummed with the usual activity, crew members talking quietly at their stations, the soft beeping of monitoring systems, and the occasional announcement over the comms through the large observation window. Earth looked peaceful, a blue marble hanging in the void. Lisa was halfway through her coffee when her personal terminal chimed. A message marked with the highest priority flickered on her screen. The sender information showed it was from the Galactic Council, the collection of alien species that had discovered humanity just 15 years ago. Lisa raised an eyebrow. The Council rarely contacted Earth directly, preferring to go through diplomatic channels. She tapped the screen to open the message. The document that appeared was formal with fancy alien script at the top and bottom, but the content was perfectly clear. The Galactic Council, representing 17 advanced spacefaring civilizations, was formally declaring war on humanity and all its colonies. Lisa read it twice, then took another sip of her coffee. It had gone cold. "Hut," she said to no one in particular. Lieutenant Greg Foster looked up from his station. "Everything okay, Commander?" Lisa turned her screen so he could see it. "The Galactic Council just declared war on us." Greg's eyes widened as he scanned the document. "What? Why would they do that?" Lisa scrolled through the message. "Let's see. They say we're expanding too rapidly, developing technology at an alarming rate, and disrupting the cosmic balance." She snorted. "Basically, they're scared because we figured out better FTL travel in a decade than they did in a century." By now, other crew members had gathered around. Security Chief Maria Alvarez frowned as she read the declaration. "They're giving us one Earth week to surrender all military assets and agree to technological supervision," Maria said, "or they'll begin pacification operations." "That sounds bad," Lisa nodded. "I suppose it would be if they actually understood what they were getting into." She forwarded the message to Earth Defense Command in Washington with a simple note: "FYI, aliens declaring war protocol recommendation." The crew looked at her with varying degrees of concern. "Shouldn't we be more worried about this?" asked Communications Officer Ryan Daniel. "They have 17 species with space fleets. We're just one planet." Lisa leaned back in her chair. "Ryan, what did you do before joining the Defense Force?" "I was a history professor specializing in military history and in all that. History, what happens when someone underestimates humans." Ryan thought for a moment, then a slow smile spread across his face. "They lose badly." Lisa nodded. "The Council denied our application to join 5 separate times. They've restricted our access to their technology. They've treated us like children." She stood up and stretched. "But while they were looking down on us, we were studying them, all of them." Her terminal chimed again. A reply from Washington. "Protocol Omega authorized. Stand by for instructions. Maintain normal operations." Lisa smiled. "As I thought." She turned to her crew. "Everyone back to your stations. Business as usual." "That's it?" Maria asked. "They declare war, and we just go back to work for now," Lisa said. "Trust me, there's a plan. There's always been a plan." As her crew dispersed, Lisa looked out at Earth again. The public wouldn't panic when they heard the news. There might be some concern, some preparation, but Humanity had faced extinction before. From each other, from nature, from their own creations, an alien threat that was almost expected. She pulled up another screen showing the known positions of Council fleet movements. They were already mobilizing exactly as predicted. Lisa finished her cold coffee and recycled the cup. The aliens had no idea what they were getting themselves into. Humanity had been preparing for this day since they first looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone, and humans as a species did not go quietly into the night. Admiral William Carter stood at the head of the long conference table in the Pentagon's secure meeting room. The room was filled with military leaders from around the world. Russian generals sat next to Chinese commanders. European Union defense ministers shared space with Indian and Brazilian admirals. For once, Earth stood united. On the main screen, the Galactic Council's war declaration glowed in blue light. Some of the people in the room read it with worry in their eyes. Others seemed calm, even confident. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Carter began, his voice steady and firm. The moment we have prepared for has arrived. The same council that has rejected our membership 5 times now threatens our existence. He paused, looking at each face in the room, so he continued, leaning back against the table. What are your thoughts? General Patricia Rodriguez from the South American Alliance laughed. It was a sound that surprised some of the newer members at the table. They clearly never bothered to study human history, she said. We've been getting ready for this since we first reached Mars. Colonel John Hayes of the European Space Force nodded in agreement. Is it time for protocol? Omega. The room grew quiet. Protocol Omega was not officially documented in any public record. It was the ultimate contingency plan developed in secret by Earth's best minds after first contact with alien life. Admiral Carter nodded slowly. Protocol Omega has been authorized, but we won't rush into action. First, we need to send a message back. Defense Minister Lee from the Asian coalition leaned forward. What kind of message do you suggest? Admiral, no response at all, said Admiral Carter with a slight smile. Let them wonder what we're doing. Meanwhile, activate all sleeper agents and observation posts in Council space. I want to know their every move before they make it. The leaders nodded in agreement. For decades, Earth had been quietly placing observers throughout known space. Not spies exactly, but watchers who kept track of alien technology, biology, and military capabilities. What about the public? Asked Prime Minister Nora Jenkins. Should we announce the declaration? Admiral Carter considered this. Yes, but calmly. No emergency broadcasts or special announcements. Treated as important news, but not cause for panic. The citizens might surprise you, said General Rodriguez. My analysts predict minimal disruption. Humans have lived under the threat of extinction many times before. As if to prove her point, an aide entered the room and handed Admiral Carter a tablet. He looked at it and smiled. The first memes about the war declaration are already spreading online, he said, turning the tablet to show a picture of a bored cat with the caption, Aliens declare war, wake me when they get here. The room filled with laughter, easing the tension. Admiral Carter grew serious again. What's the status of the deterrent array? Final calibrations underway, replied Defense Minister Lee. Dr. Wright reports it will be fully operational Within 48 hours, and our fleet cloaking. Systems engaged, said Colonel Hayes. All vessels in position, but invisible too. Council scanning technology, Admiral. Carter nodded, satisfied. The Council believes we're just one small planet. With a few colony worlds, they have no idea about our true capabilities or how far we've spread. He looked at the war declaration one more time. They're giving us 1 week before they attack. Let's use that time wisely. The military leader stood and saluted as they left to carry out their duties. Admiral Carter remained, staring at the star map. On the wall, small lights showed human settlements and outposts, many more than the Council knew about. We didn't want this war, he said quietly to himself. But we're ready for it. Outside the Pentagon, life continued as normal. People went to work, children attended school, and the news of alien war played alongside weather reports and sports scores. If aliens expected panic in the streets, they would be very disappointed. 200 feet beneath the lunar surface, Dr. Alan Wright walked through the long white hallway of the secret facility known only as the basement. His footsteps echoed as he checked his tablet, reviewing the final status reports. Behind thick walls on either side of the hallway, teams of scientists and engineers worked day and night shifts. This place had existed for over a decade, unknown to the public and even to most government officials. Only those with the highest clearance knew what happened here. Dr. Wright called the voice from behind him. He turned to see Olivia Martinez, his chief assistant, hurrying to catch up. The calibrations for the Century species are complete. We've confirmed their unique biological weakness to the frequency. Alan nodded with satisfaction. Excellent. And the Veltraxians, their shield harmonics have been mapped. Our systems can bypass them completely. They continued walking, passing a large window that looked into a massive chamber. Inside, a ring of strange devices pointed inward, occasionally sparking with blue energy. That's 17 for 17, Alan said. Every Council species analyzed and countered. Olivia lowered her voice. They'd really have no idea, do they? They think we've been isolated in our corner of space all this time. Alan smiled slightly. Council made a critical mistake. They judged us by our official missions and diplomatic presence. They never bothered to look for our unofficial operations. The truth was simple but powerful. For generations, Earth had been sending out silent ships and hidden observers, while showing a public face of a young, newly spacefaring species. Humans had been carefully studying every alien civilization they encountered, learning their strengths, noting their weaknesses, not for conquest, for survival. Ellen stopped at a large door marked Deterrent Array Control. He placed his hand on the scanner, and the door slid open. Inside, a team of 20 specialists monitored a complex system of displays and controls. Status report, Ellen requested. Chief Engineer Frank Des looked up from his console. Final power calibrations complete, sir. The array is at 97% operational capacity. We'll reach 100% in approximately 14 hours. Excellent. And remember, this is a deterrent only. We don't fire unless directly attacked. The deterrent array was humanity's hidden ace, not designed to destroy planets or fleets, but to target the specific weaknesses of Council technology and biology. If Fired, it could disable their ships, scramble their communications, and even trigger harmless but incapacitating biological responses in attacking forces back on Earth. The public reaction to the war declaration continued to surprise and confuse alien observers. News feeds showed people going about their daily lives, schools remained open, concerts and sports events proceeded as scheduled. At a grocery store in Denver, store manager Hank Goodman noticed only a small increase in purchases, nothing like the panic buying that happened during the pandemic years ago. Aliens, huh? Said Mrs. Peterson, a regular customer, as she checked out with her normal weekly shopping. My grandson says we got this handled. He works for the government. You know, Hank nodded. My brother's in the Space Force. He's not worried, so I'm not worried. Across social media, the war declaration was treated with everything from serious discussion to outright humor. Memes popped up, comparing the formal alien language to overly complicated coffee orders. Late night comedians joked about aliens picking a fight with the species that invented both nuclear weapons and reality television. They should have done their homework. One popular post read attached to a montage of humanity's most impressive technological achievements. In Washington, President Russell received hourly updates in the Oval Office. The latest report showed all systems go for Protocol Omega. Earth's hidden fleet was in position. The lunar defense systems were nearly ready. The sleeper agents throughout Council space were activated and reporting in. They think they know us, the president said quietly, but they've only seen what we wanted them to see. The countdown to the council's deadline continued. 5 more days until their attack would begin. 5 more days to prepare Earth's surprise. 3 days after the war declaration, the first council ships entered the edges of the Sol system. 27 warships of various sizes and designs moved in a tight formation. Their hulls gleamed with strange metals unknown to most humans. Weapons ports lined their sides, ready to open and fire. In the lead vessel fleet, Commander Zixter of the Veltraxian Dominion stood on the bridge. His scaled skin reflected the dim blue lights of the control room as he studied the view screen showing the human solar system. Status report, he commanded. His second in command, Subcommander Vel, checked the ship sensors. No defensive fleet detected. Commander, no transmissions directed at us. The humans appear to be ignoring our approach. Zixter's headcrest rose in surprise. This was not what he expected. According to Council intelligence, humans were an emotion species prone to dramatic reactions. They should be broadcasting threats or pleas for mercy. They should have scrambled whatever primitive fleet they possessed. Perhaps their detection systems are not advanced enough to notice us yet, 6-star suggested. Unlikely, Commander replied. Fell. Our scans show they have basic but functional long-range sensors. They can see us. Zixter paced the bridge. Proceed with caution, maintain formation, and set course for their 4th planet. At NASA headquarters in Houston, Director Samantha Nelson watched the alien fleet movements on large monitors. Beside her stood Secretary of Defense Richard Gomes, calmly eating a sandwich from the cafeteria. They're approaching Mars orbit, reported one of the technicians. Samantha nodded. Right on schedule. Young officer named Keith Miller looked concerned. Ma'am, shouldn't we be doing Something preparing defenses or evacuations. Richard took another bite of his sandwich. Like what? I don't know. Something, anything. Keith looked between the two senior officials. They have 27 warships. Samantha smiled slightly. We are doing something. Lieutenant, we're letting them get closer. Richard finished his sandwich and wiped his hands. The closer they get, the more effective our response will be. Keith looked confused. What response? I haven't heard about any response plan. That's the idea, Richard said. If you don't know about it, the aliens certainly don't. On the main screen, the Council fleet had reached Mars orbit and was holding position. From their behavior, they seemed confused by the lack of resistance. Now, asked Samantha. Richard checked his watch. Almost. Admiral Carter is waiting for them to send a demand first. Protocol dictates we give them one chance to reconsider. As if on cue, the communications officer announced, we're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet directed at all Earth communications channels. Put it through. Samantha ordered. The face of Zixstar appeared on the main screen. His alien features were stern as he began to speak, his words translated by the computer. People of Earth, this is Fleet Commander Zixstar of the Galactic Council forces. Your time to surrender is running out. We demand an immediate response and your unconditional surrender. Failure to comply will result in the demonstration of our power against your outer colonies. You have 1 Earth hour to respond. Transmission ended. The room was quiet. For a moment, Richard pulled out his phone and sent a short text message. That's our cue. Samantha turned to the communications officer. Send the prepared response. In the Council flagship, Zixstar was growing impatient. Still no response. Nothing, Commander. Ver replied. Wait, incoming message. Text only. Display it, ordered Zixstar. The simple message appeared on the screen. We acknowledge your declaration of war. Before proceeding, perhaps you'd like to see what you're up against. Look up. Zixstar's crest flattened in confusion. Look up. What does that mean? Unknown, Commander, said VL. Perhaps it's a human expression, or can above our fleet. Zixstar suddenly ordered, a feeling of unease growing in his gut. Vel did as commanded. His eyes widened. Commander, you need to see this. The view screen changed to show the space above their fleet. What had appeared empty moments before now revealed thousands of human vessels. Their cloaking systems deactivated all at once. They surrounded the Council fleet completely. For the first time since the mission began, Zixstar felt fear. Zixstar stared at the screen in disbelief. Thousands of human ships surrounded his fleet. Some were large, almost the size of his flagship. Others were small and pastel-looking. All of them had weapons aimed directly at the Council vessels. Impossible, he whispered. The humans do not have this level of technology. Apparently they do, Commander Vil said, his voice shaking. And they've been hiding it. Communications officer interrupted. Commander, we're receiving detailed scans from the human vessels. They're targeting our specific shield frequencies. Each vessel is calibrated to penetrate our defenses. Zixstar felt his heart sink. If the humans knew their shield frequencies, their weapons would cut through the Council ships like they weren't even there. How could they know this? He demanded. This information is protected by our highest security protocols. No one on the bridge had an answer. The truth was something the Council had never considered that the supposedly primitive humans had been studying them for decades, gathering information, preparing for this very moment. On the lead human ship, Admiral Carter watched the Council fleet with calm eyes. Next to him stood Commander Lisa Clean, who had been transferred from her orbital station for this mission. "They've seen our ships," reported the tactical officer. "Their power systems are fluctuating. They appear to be in some distress." Carter nodded. "Good, Lisa. Let's move to phase 2. Lisa tapped her control panel. "Activating now, Admiral." Across the galaxy, on 17 different planets that were home to the Council species, hidden systems activated simultaneously. These were not weapons, they were communication arrays buried deep and kept dormant until this moment. Each had been secretly placed by human agents. Over the years, the arrays broadcast a single message to all citizens of the Council worlds. The message appeared on their communication devices, their entertainment screens, their public displays. It bypassed government filters and military blocks. The message was simple: citizens of the Galactic Council worlds, your leadership has declared war on humanity without your knowledge or consent. We have no quarrel with your people. Our conflict is only with those who would threaten our existence. We offer peace and cooperation, or we offer consequences. The choice is yours. Attached to the message was evidence of the Council leadership's secret meetings, their plans to control Earth's development, and their decision to declare war without consulting their own population. On the Arcanian home world, Citizen Jewel watched the message with millions of others. "Is this true?" he asked his life partner. "Did our leaders really do this without telling us?" Similar conversations happened on every Council world as regular people learned about the war for the first time. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Carter opened a direct channel to Zixter's ship. "This is Admiral William Carter of the United Earth Defense Force. Your fleet is surrounded and your government's deception has been revealed to your citizens. I suggest you consider your next actions very carefully." Zixar's crest flattened against his head in anger and fear. This is an outrage. How dare you interfere in Council affairs? You declared war on us." Carter replied calmly. "Did you expect us not to defend ourselves? But this level of technology, these ships, it's not possible." Carter smiled slightly. "We showed you what we wanted you to see. Young species just beginning to explore space. Meanwhile, we studied every aspect of your civilizations, your technologies, your weaknesses. This is trickery." Zix's target. "No," Carter said. "This is survival. Humanity has been preparing for threats from beyond the stars since before we left our planet. We hoped for friendship, but we prepared for war." Zixter looked around at his bridge crew. Their faces showed fear and uncertainty. His secure communication line suddenly blinked. A direct call from the Council leadership. "We are receiving emergency communications from our home worlds." Ver reported massive public demonstrations are occurring on all Council planets. The citizens are demanding answers about the war declaration. For the first time, Zixter realized that his fleet of 27 ships might not be the strongest force in this conflict. The humans had not just prepared militarily, they had outmaneuvered the Council politically as well. "What are your orders, Commander?" Vil asked. Quietly, Zixtar stared at the human fleet surrounding his ships. He had no good options left. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos. The grand room, with its high ceiling and ornate decorations, had never seen such disorder. Council members shouted over each other. Some pounded their various appendages on the circular table. Others huddled in small groups, whispering urgently. Elder diplomat Creox of the Arcanians, one of the oldest and most respected council members, finally managed to bring some order to the room. His deep voice cut through the noise. Silence, he bellowed. The room gradually quieted. This is not how the council conducts itself. He turned to the council chairman, Voxar of the Valtraxians, who was related to Fleet Commander Zixtar. You declared war on humanity without a full council vote. This violates our most sacred laws and traditions. Voxar's scales darkened with anger. It was an emergency action. The humans are developing too quickly. They pose an existential threat to the galactic order. The only threat I see, said Creox, is to your species' dominance of interstellar trade routes. He looked around the chamber. How many of you agreed to this war because the humans developed faster engines that made your shipping companies less profitable? Several council members looked away, unable to meet his gaze. Representative Moltran of the Centauri rose to speak. We have just received word from our fleet. The humans have thousands of ships, all equipped with technology designed specifically to counter our defenses. They also have agents on all our worlds who have revealed our secret deliberations to our citizens. His voice trembled slightly. There are protests in every major city across council space. The council chamber grew quiet as this news sank in. What they had thought would be a simple show of force against a young species had turned into a potential disaster. How could they have prepared so thoroughly? Asked a council member from the back of the room. We have been watching them since they first achieved space flight, apparently, said Crelly. They were watching us as well, and they saw much more than we realized. On Earth, President Diane Russell addressed the United Nations General Assembly. Representatives from every nation listened carefully. The speech was broadcast to all human colonies and settlements across space. We did not seek this conflict, President Russell said, her voice firm and clear. We applied for membership in the Galactic Council 5 times. We sought peaceful cooperation and exchange of ideas. Each time we were denied. She paused, looking around the room. While the council looked down on us, we prepared not out of aggression but out of caution. Human history has taught us that peace must sometimes be defended. We are prepared to defend ourselves, but we are equally prepared to make peace. She touched a control on the podium, and a large screen behind her lit up. It showed the human fleet surrounding the council warships near Mars. At this moment, our forces have contained the council attack fleet. We have also revealed the truth to the citizens of all council worlds. They now know their leaders declared war without their consent. Murmurs spread through the assembly. I am now extending an open hand to those council species who desire peace. We welcome dialogue with any civilization that wishes to meet as equals. War benefits no one. Cooperation benefits us all. Across Earth, people watch the speech on screens large and small, in homes, in offices, in public squares. Unlike the panic that council leaders had expected, Humans reacted with characteristic resilience. In a small diner in Chicago, customers ate their lunch while watching the president's speech. Think they'll take the peace offer? Asked a truck driver to no one in particular. Some will, some won't, and LT Unc and GTT replied the waitress as she refilled his coffee. Either way, we and LT Unc and GTLL be fine. This calm confidence wasn't arrogance, it was the product of a species that had faced countless threats throughout its history, from nature, from each other, and now from the stars. Humans had always adapted, they had always survived. Back in the council chamber, a vote was called. The question: continue the war or open peace negotiations with humanity? The council was splitting apart before their eyes. 2 weeks after the standoff at Mars, human diplomats gathered on Europa, Jupiter's icy moon. The meeting place was neutral ground, a newly built facility that floated on the frozen surface. The structure was simple but elegant, with large windows showing the vast cracked ice plains outside, and Jupiter hanging enormous in the black sky. Ambassador Eric Daniels led the human delegation. Despite the historical importance of the meeting, he dressed simply in a dark blue suit with the Earth emblem on his lapel. Behind him stood representatives from the major nations and colonies of humanity. Across the round table sat ambassadors from 8 council species who had broken away from the war faction. They wore varied clothing representing their diverse cultures, some wearing elaborate ceremonial dress, while others preferred practical attire. Welcome to Europa, Eric said warmly. We appreciate your willingness to meet with us. Ambassador Morville, a tall being with silvery skin and 4 arms, inclined his head. We should have done this long ago. Instead of rejecting your applications for council membership, what made you change your minds? Asked Eric. Besides the obvious recent events, Morville looked uncomfortable. We have been observing your species for centuries, Ambassador Daniels quietly. Without your knowledge, we know, Eric said with a small smile, just as we've been observing you. The alien ambassadors exchanged surprised glances. Our leadership believed that your technological progress came from recklessness, not true innovation. Continued Morvo, we saw how quickly you advanced from primitive flight to space travel, from basic computing to artificial intelligence. It frightened many council species. Fear is universal, Eric replied, but so is the capacity to overcome it. The Arcanian representative Krilmax spoke next. We were wrong about humans. We thought your rapid advancement meant you were dangerous and unpredictable, but now we see that you prepared for conflict while hoping for peace. That shows wisdom. Our council failed to recognize. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the remaining council species that had supported the war were having a very difficult time. Their military efforts against human outposts had been strangely ineffective. Their weapon systems mysteriously malfunctioned. Their communication suffered unexplained failures. Supply ships arrived at the wrong coordinates or with crucial items missing. None of this came from direct human attacks. It was the result of carefully placed algorithms and countermeasures that human intelligence had implemented years before. On the Veltraxian flagship, now limping home after the standoff at Mars, Fleet Commander Zixter received more bad news. 3 more systems have declared their Support for peace talks with the humans, reported his second-in-command. Our alliance is falling apart, Zixter stared at the star map showing Council territory. Nearly half the systems were now colored in green, indicating they had joined peace negotiations. Remainder in red still officially supported the war, but even among those, there were growing protests and calls for leadership changes, all because we underestimated one species, he said. Bitterly, back on Europa, the peace conference was making progress. The human delegation had been surprised by how quickly the aliens moved once they decided on a path, already preliminary. Agreements on trade, technology, exchange, and mutual defense were taking shape. There is one thing we still don't understand, said Morville during a break. Your people seem so calm about all this. A war declaration from 17 advanced civilizations would terrify most species. Eric laughed. Ambassador, humanity has lived under the threat of its own extinction for most of our history. Nuclear weapons, climate change, pandemics, asteroid impacts. We've spent generations preparing for end-of-the-world scenarios, so when the end of the world came from the stars, instead began Krillmax, it was just Tuesday, finished Eric with a smile. Besides, we've been watching old alien invasion movies for a century. In a way, we've been mentally preparing for this moment since before we left our atmosphere. The alien delegates looked confused, not understanding the reference, but they nodded anyway, as they returned to the negotiation table. Eric felt hopeful. What had begun as a war declaration was transforming into the greatest opportunity for cooperation humanity had ever known. 6 months after the declaration of war, the Galactic Council was no more. In its place stood the new interstellar alliance with representatives from 23 space-faring civilizations, including humanity. The grand ceremony marking this new era took place in a massive space station orbiting a neutral star system. Commander Lisa Clean, now wearing the formal uniform of an ambassador, stood on the stage alongside delegates from worlds across the galaxy. She looked out at the assembled crowd of diplomats, journalists, and officials from every member species. The journey from war to peace had not been simple. 3 of the original council species still refused to join the new alliance, though their isolation was making them reconsider. The rest had gradually accepted that humanity was not a threat but a potential partner. Today marks a new chapter in galactic history, announced Krellox, who had become the first Chancellor of the Alliance. We put aside old fears and embraced new possibilities. Lisa stepped forward when it was her turn to sign the new charter. She thought back to that morning 6 months ago when she had received the war declaration while drinking her coffee. How strange the path had been since then. As representative of Earth and all human colonies, I commit our people to this alliance, she said clearly. We pledge cooperation, mutual respect, and shared progress. She signed the document using an old-fashioned pen, a symbolic gesture requested by the other species who found the human tradition charming. We could have responded to your declaration with immediate force, Lisa told the assembled delegates after the signing. Instead, we chose to demonstrate that humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons or technology, but our adaptability and determination. We've spent our existence preparing for threats, yes, but also for Friendship, we prefer the latter. The delegates applauded. Many had come to respect humans deeply over the past months. What they had once seen as a dangerously unpredictable species, they now recognized as incredibly resourceful and surprisingly wise. Back on Earth, news feeds showed the ceremony, but most people paid only passing attention. In homes, workplaces, and public spaces across the planet, daily life continued as normal. The Great Galactic Crisis had become just another news story, competing with sports scores and celebrity gossip. In a small park in Boston, Jerry Nelson pushed his daughter on a swing while half watching the ceremony on his phone. "Higher, Daddy." 5-year-old Alice demanded. "Did you know we almost had a space war?" Jerry asked her as he pushed the swing higher. "Like in your movies?" Alice asked, giggling as she soared through the air. "Kind of. But we made friends instead." "That's better than war," Alice declared with the simple wisdom of a child. Jerry smiled. "Much better." Across town, high school teacher Karen Foster discussed the historical implications with her student. "This will be in history books someday," she told them. The moment humanity officially joined the galactic community, "Is it true we were never really in danger?" asked one student. Karen considered the question. "We prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. That's been humanity's approach throughout history." In Washington, President Russell received the final report on Protocol Omega. Document detailed how Earth's hidden preparations had been successfully deployed and, more importantly, how most of them had never needed to be used. Deterrent had worked. "Should we dismantle the systems now?" asked Defense Secretary Gomes. President Russell shook her head. "Maintain them, but scale back. Trust our new allies. But remember the lessons of history." In lunar orbit, Dr. Alan Wright and Olivia Martinez watched the ceremony from their lab. The deterrent array had been placed in standby mode, but remained operational. "Do you think we'll ever need it again?" Olivia asked. "I hope not," Ellen replied, "but hope isn't a strategy." They had learned that lesson long ago, when humans first looked up at the stars and wondered what waited for them. Hope for peace, prepare for challenges. It was the approach that had served humanity well throughout its tumultuous history on Earth, and now it had carried them successfully onto the galactic stage. The universe had declared war, and humanity had shrugged it off, not through arrogance or dismissal, but through careful preparation and the wisdom to turn conflict into opportunity. As the new Interstellar Alliance Charter took effect, the stars themselves seemed a little brighter, full of possibility rather than threat.